Okay, just like the video that was posted 2 days ago, I have a different locale for this video. Why? Because, like I said, there's construction going on outside of Pop Studios, and needless to say...
We shot it 5 minutes ago.
Bingo! That's right. Well, now that we've had the suspension of belief completely destroyed, I want to bring up the fact that lately we've been doing cryptic comments, and the cryptic comment this week was headlock. And just like I said, most of you would probably go completely the wrong direction with this. Think about it, you really would. So, headlock...
What can you compare to Ready to Rumble?
Yeah, exactly. And I really want to do the wrestler, but we can't put anything with it yet. Stay tuned, maybe someday. The reason that these two equal out to headlock, obviously everyone knows that Andy Kaufman did the intergender wrestling champion gimmick, and of course he wrestled Jerry King Lawler in Mid-South Coliseum. So the first thing that he did was, Lawler said, "I'll give you a free headlock." The connection to Ed Wood would be the fact that Tor Johnson was a former wrestler, and even in this film he is portrayed by George the Animal Steele. So that's where headlock comes through. So this is what happens when we put Man on the Moon against Ed Wood. So it's Milos Forman versus Milosh? Sorry.
Like the tennis trainer on Seinfeld.
Oh yeah! Milos Forman against Tim Burton. So once again, we're doing Burton 2 weeks in a row. So
and Tracy Walter, who plays Bob in Batman.
Yes.
Is the guy that works at the National Enquirer and Man on the Moon.
He is. AJ, take it away.
Alright. Obviously, apart from the wrestling connection, the two main things these have in common is Andy Kaufman and Ed Wood were both two guys doing creative, original things that they, well, not necessarily original in Ed Wood's case, but they were under the impression that they were geniuses and were ahead of their time, basically.
Exactly.
And they were misunderstood.
Correct.
And most people thought what they were doing made absolutely no sense. But now, as time has progressed, both of them are quite revered for what they did.
Absolutely.
So, and they both have the same writers.
I didn't do that on purpose, folks, I promise.
It's great. I don't know how to pronounce their names. They're very long, but they were both the same screenwriters on these movies. So, I don't know how to do this first category. It's going to have a lot of things in it.
Oh boy.
I guess it's basically Andy versus Ed Wood as they're portrayed in the movies.
So
like this would involve the way they're written, how fleshed out they are, and Carrey and Depp.
Is this Jim Carrey versus Depp, or is it so much more than that?
It's everything.
That's my annotation.
Andy Kaufman versus Ed Wood.
Okay, that's fine. I'll go with that.
Alright. I'll start with Man on the Moon's portrayal of Andy. I'm going to have to start by critiquing it, actually.
Okay.
Jim Carrey is known for his incredible performance. Like, he literally did I always thought this was kind of a bit much. But he basically, became Andy. He had people call him Andy.
Yep.
He acted like Andy, wherever he was.
He told Jerry Lawler to actually pile drive him instead of having the stuntman take it.
The smack on Letterman was real, too.
Yes.
But despite all of that, the way that Andy is written leaves a lot to be desired. Because pretty much it's a complicated thing. It depends on what side you're on. You could see it from a positive light and a negative light, depending on where you stand. You could look at it in a positive way by saying, nobody understood Andy, so don't expect to understand him after you've seen the movie.
Okay.
Because that's just the way he is.
Got it.
On the negative side, obviously, is we never get inside Andy's head.
No.
A lot of the stuff, we have no idea why the fuck he does it.
No, not at all.
And I suppose people going into a biopic of him would think maybe they'd come out realizing, okay, that's why he would do these, or that's why he would act that way.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still kind of acting as spectators.
Very true.
Like, biopics are generally supposed to be like fly on the wall kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But with Man on the Moon were still the audience.
Correct.
The normal audience. So, it's really hard to figure out what side of that you want to stand on. Like, there's this, and he's all over the place. Like I said, I don't know if that's just the way he was, or if he was written sloppily, or, I imagine that's the way he was. That's what I always hear.
Okay.
I've tracked down some YouTube videos every now and then and seen him. I saw fucking Heartbeats.
I'm From Hollywood is a really good one too.
Yeah, I have a little bit of what he was like. He was at Foreman's last choice before Carrie was actually Edward Norton.
That would have been very interesting.
Which makes me curious because they do look a lot alike.
Yeah.
So Norton and Kaufman, not Norton and Carrie.
No, I see what you're talking about.
But obviously, he obviously also Carrie and Kaufman share a birthday, so there's that too.
And that's even that was actually a promotional tool when the movie first came out too.
But like the guy was all over it. Shut up to the camera.
Thought this would be appropriate that I have this.
Now, like there's that particularly really weird scene that's just confusing where it's after he's discovered the boil on the back of his neck and he goes and does stand up.
Yeah.
Because he's supposedly desperate for money. Yeah. We don't really know if he's desperate for money or not, I don't know. Because that's when he charges the woman $1 to touch his celebrity cyst.
Yeah.
He comes on stage and he seems really melancholy and sick and he says taxi's been cancelled and they all think he's joking, but we know it's for real.
Yeah.
But then he comes out with this, also my wife left me and she took the kids thing, and it's like, he's jumping back and forth from what's real and what isn't, and it's this weird, confusing, I don't know if that was him, like, down spiraling after he discovered the boil or what it was, but, so you can say his character feels all over the place, but then again, that's kind of the way he was, so it's very frustrating to try to analyze that, really. So.
Very much so.
Well, now we'll talk about Ed Wood's betrayal. He's an interesting character. He's not really, he's not near as hard to decode as Andy is. He's pretty much, honestly, to the people around him, he was like, it was a while before people realized he liked to wear women's clothes and all that. Yeah. That's Depp's golden delivery every time he says it is great. Well, I like to wear women's clothing. And he always does it with a big smile, too.
And the smile that we saw again in Charlie the Chocolate Factory.
He talks about how when he went to war, he would wear a bra and panties under his uniform, and he said he didn't care whether or not he died. He was afraid of getting wounded and the paramedics finding out. Nice. He also had fake teeth from where he lost them in the war, too. And there's this very interesting scene where after he's pretty much been outed to everybody, he's outed himself to everybody. He does this scene where he dances for the entire crew of Bride of the Monster after they've wrapped, I think. And of course, it's him, and he's in the get-up, and he's taking his false teeth out. So it's kind of like this weird scene where he represents, he's wearing tassels and panties. He was very, to where Andy didn't want people to really know what was going on with him, apparently, Ed Wood wanted everybody to know.
Absolutely.
There was even the scene where, obviously, Dolores, who is his wife, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, didn't know about the cross-dressing thing. It started with him wanting to do Gwen or Glenda, which was originally called, I Changed My Sex, or something like that.
I Changed My Sex.
So he goes to the producer, who's played by Mike Starr, which is that's a really funny performance, and he says, I feel like I'm qualified to make this movie, and then that's the first time he says, I like to wear women's clothing. So he writes Gwen or Glenda, and he gives it to Dolores to read. And basically, Dolores reading Gwen or Glenda is his way of outing himself to her. I wouldn't say outing because he's not gay, but letting her into know what his lifestyle, his secret lifestyle is. Maybe that's still the same phrase, I don't know. But regardless, she reads Glenda, and we see her have an epiphany on her face, and she opens the door to the room that Ed's in, and he is in her clothing. And of course, she throws a fit and thinks he's weird, which it takes a while, but it eventually leads to their divorce. So then he meets Patricia Arquette later, and they go on this spook house ride, and it breaks down, and it's their first date.
Nice.
And there's this really, it's a nice scene, but it's also really funny, where they're sitting there in this broken down spook house, and he just says, well, I should take this time to tell you, because I like you so much, I've never said this on a first date, but I like to wear women's clothing. So, is that going to bother you? And she says, well, does that mean you don't like sex with women? He's like, oh no, I love sex with women. And she's like, oh, okay. And that was that. She accepted it.
It's like Eddie Izzard. Yeah.
So, and the thing is the big difference between them is, this is where it gets interesting. Andy was very much oblivious to what people thought of him.
Yeah.
Andy was so caught up in the fact that he thought he was hilarious.
He lived in their little bubble.
Yeah. The two particular scenes to point that out are the scene after The Great Gatsby, where George says, who are you trying to entertain, the audience or yourself? And it's like for the first time Andy has an epiphany that he doesn't know the answer to that. And then the scene later with Saturday Night Live, after the Jerry Lawler thing, where he's saying he only got like 20% or something. And he says, let's make this a gag. I can, I demand a recount and stuff like that. And George has to just lay it down for him. You don't understand the fact that they don't want you. And he has that same look that he had earlier. Believe it or not, Ed Wood was actually very aware of what people thought of him. Like, there were times I don't know about real life, but in the movie where he would just lay in bed or lay on the couch and just go, wow, people think I suck. Which is really interesting. Because he was distraught that people thought he sucked, but that didn't stop him from thinking that didn't stop him from thinking he was a genius himself.
True.
So, this category is taking much longer than I thought it would. I don't have any of these thought out. I'll tell them because they're clued in. You've just shown me a picture of you both giving a thumbs up. Why did you go there?
Because he's also a director that realizes how bad his stuff really is, too.
Ed Wood didn't challenge critics to box him, though.
I forgot about that.
So yeah, it kind of makes Ed Wood more accessible. Like, it makes him more likable. I mean, Andy gets really likable. There's only a couple of times where Lynn seems to bring out his real side.
Yeah.
But we barely get that, because there's even the scene where he's laying in bed with Lynn, and he's talking about the real him, and Lynn says there is no real you, and he says, oh yeah. So, I guess it's just a matter if you want the guy that challenges you more. Because Ed Wood is pretty on the surface. Like, he knows what he thinks of himself, but he also knows of what people think of him, which is the exact opposite. But it never keeps him from doing exactly what he wants. And even the whole movie, he's talking about how his idol is Orson Welles.
Yes.
And when he finally gets to meet Orson Welles, he walks right up to him at a bar in women's clothing and just talks to him. And that's where he has his epiphany. The scene with Orson Welles is only like 30 seconds long, but we'll get to the uncanny casting of him in a minute.
I'm reading it right now.
So, oh my god. Now I have to make the decision. I could just say, fuck you, you decide, but...
You don't want me to decide, obviously. It would be very one-sided versus if that's the case.
Well, I'm also...
You could draw it up, too, which is something you've been doing a lot lately.
I'm also Man on the Moon. It's in its entirety actually has a bit of a disadvantage here because Ed Wood is the subject matter of Ed Wood is something I'm extremely interested in, obviously.
Yeah.
Whereas the filmmaking, not the cross dressing.
Yes. Good covering all bases there, AJ. Good job.
Whereas Andy was the he called himself a song and dance man in that one scene because he was absolutely 100%. I'm not a comedian. I'm not a sitcom star. You know.
He's Danny Kaye.
So what makes this really hard to say is while both are really well done, I would take Ed Wood by how they portrayed the character and how they wrote him, and how they made him able to be deciphered and understood. Whereas Man on the Moon, if anything, almost isolates Andy more. However, if I was going by performances, Depp is really great in Ed Wood. Like, it's probably his best performance after Edward Scissorhands. But I would take Carrie over him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what direction to send this in. I'll go ahead and give the point to Ed Wood. Because I don't know anymore. Yeah. So, yeah, that's tough. I'd give it to Ed Wood overall, even though I'm pretty much on the level of I take the way Ed Wood was constructed, but I'd take Carrie's performance. It's almost an even balance, but for the sake of where technically, even the actor has to bring the person back to life, of course, which Carrie did.
Yeah.
A lot of people say literally. Like, a lot of people think Jim Carrey is Andy Kaufman.
That was actually something that was mentioned many times when they were promoting the movie.
But it all comes, when you're doing a biopic, the biopic starts with how the character has been written. Like, obviously Carrie became Andy Kaufman, but Carrie as Andy Kaufman was reading the script that wrote Andy Kaufman, so I guess that's what I'll say.
Alright.
Alright, the next one would be, this one's kind of difficult because the next one's supporting characters, because that's the one that's always done after the leads. But, no, actually, we're not going there yet. We're going to the love interest next.
Yes.
Dolores is in it more, so I'll use her, but I don't know. Should I make this a handicap match? Should I do 2 against 1?
Could do that.
Alright, why not? We have Dolores and Kathy, who are played by Sarah Jessica Parker and British Arquette. And we have Lynn, who is Courtney Love. We'll start with Ed Wood this time. Sarah Jessica Parker, who, for the record, there's a nice little joke. The oldest joke about any actress in Hollywood ever. The beginning has happened. The first scene is a play that Ed Wood has put on.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting in a bar and they're reading the reviews. And Dolores is reading a review about herself. And she just looks up in shock and says, "Do I really look that much like a horse?" Which is a joke people have been making about Sarah Jessica Parker for fucking ever.
Yes.
And she's basically, it's kind of hard to tell what side she's on. When they're finally doing away with their relationship forever, she's saying, like, she was just sticking around so he could finish Bride of the Monster before she got a divorce with him. But, when she got parts in his movies, she was, like, really, really excited. And when he met this girl at a bar that had come to Hollywood with a bunch of money, supposedly. And he basically used her to get the movie financed.
Yeah.
But in order to get that money from her, he had to give her the lead part, which causes Dolores to literally do the throwing plates at him thing. So you don't really know where her character's coming from. She didn't approve of his cross-dressing. She thought he was weird. And, which, you know, somebody hiding something from you, you know, sure, but, the thing is, she seemed very, very happy when she had the lead parts in his movies, so you're not really sure what leg she's standing on when it comes to him. She's basically using him in hopes to be in movies, basically, like I think the text at the end says she was a songwriter for Elvis, I think. Elvis.
Yeah, it's right here.
Go figure.
It's the last thing on there.
Then he takes Bela Lugosi to rehab, and while he's in the waiting room, he meets Kathy, who is Patricia Arquette, and she's there with her dad, I think. We'll go with that. And she's like knitting in booties and stuff like that, and she's like really friendly and sweet and approachable, and they end up, you know, obviously we learn on the Supercast ride, she actually accepts him immediately. And they were actually married for 20 years, and then she was actually on the set of the movie. Like, apparently there was a really poignant moment where everybody was really nervous about her being on the set, because she was married to him for 20 years. And I guess she said, "That's my Eddie," when she saw Johnny Depp come out of his trailer.
That's awesome.
So, then we have Lynn, who is, she kind of goes from being the, she has an interesting, we don't get much of her, so it's kind of hard to tell her way of thinking in these situations, but for a while there, she's very, straightforward with what she wants. Like, she thinks he's an asshole when they first meet, of course.
Of course.
But then she just randomly accepts his phone call to go on a date. And then she basically falls in love with him then. It's a really nice scene, even though we know it's a setup for the Lawler thing.
Yeah.
It's a really nice scene where they're outside the movie theater and he says, you know, why don't we just go and get married? And he comes up with the whole, they'll wrestle each other and he's going to let her win, and then her victory will be that she's marrying him.
Yeah.
Which of course she blows her top when she realized it was all just a setup for the Lawler thing. And,
yes.
But then after that scene, she's pretty much literally behind anything that he does. Like, she's just literally there to be nothing but supportive of everything. And I guess it's because she's not particularly being used.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we really don't, they kind of shortchanged her character.
Yeah.
So, I'd give that point to Ed Wood as well. Next would be the supporting characters.
Okay.
Which is an interesting bunch. Man on the Moon will be here all day, so let me get started. We have George, of course, who is, I think Danny DeVito's performance in this movie is Oscar-worthy.
Absolutely.
Like, everybody talks about, you know, Carrie, of course, but I think DeVito is just great in this movie. And he's, so we have, I'm going to do this as quickly as possible, we have Bob, obviously, who is Giamatti, who is hilarious, and it's basically his, he'll basically do anything. Like, he and Andy are, like, inseparable.
Yes.
And they have the same kind of sense of humor and everything, but there's even stuff that Bob is not clued in on, like, the prostitutes.
Yeah.
When he says, like, Andy's acting really shy, and then they go off, and then he's like, it's my friend's first time with a prostitute. And she's like, Andy's in here every week, but sometimes he's Tony and he wears a tux, and Bob has an epiphany.
Nice.
There is his dad, played by Jerry Becker, which is interesting. That's a good part to have, because he's obviously at the very beginning he's not supportive at all.
No.
But then as Andy gets older, he becomes a little more supportive, but at the same time his support is kind of on and off, because he wants to support Andy in the good things, but Andy's so out of control he can't necessarily support him. So it's a very complicated role for only like having 3 scenes.
Very much so.
He's also the guy that Willem vaporized in Spider-Man. His mom doesn't get really anything to do except to cry, really. His brother's Michael Kelly. I can't remember who his sister is.
Melanie Vesey.
But yeah, they're there. They're there to basically like they're the ones laughing hysterically when he does the Mighty Mouse bit, and they're supportive there. But then by the end of it, they're the ones like his parents are freaking out in the hospital, and it's his brother and sister saying, "This is bullshit."
Yeah.
Like, you know, it being a showbiz hospital, and the doctor's not even like wearing proper attire, and it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
And of course, Michael, his brother, actually starts partaking in everything. Like, supposedly he started taking up Tony Clifton, and when the woman fake dies at Carnegie Hall, they say, "Is a doctor in the house?" And it's Michael that comes on stage.
Yeah.
The ABC executive, which is Vincent Schiavelli, is basically the guy they always have to get past with the stuff they want to do.
Yeah.
Like the scene where he has his special and he wants to do the rolling thing. And they negotiate how long it's going to last. And for some reason, he's still there on the... Oh, what? Yeah, ABC, okay. He's there for the Fridays thing, too.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody after that plays themselves.
Norm Macdonald doesn't. He plays Michael Richards
yeah.
in Fridays. And the producer on Fridays is where Bob Zmuda shows up.
Carolyn Ray and the other girl that's in a lot of stuff. I don't know how to pronounce her name, actually. But they were both not who they were either.
Nope.
Letterman was himself.
On the Conan set. That was great.
Christopher Lloyd, Carol Kane, Mary Lou Henner.
Judd Hirsch, all the Taxi cast were involved. Lorne Michaels plays himself.
I think Jeff Conway was there too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
This is really, this would be really, I could not do this if I were her. But I'm not sure where she is. I'm sure if I look hard enough I can find her. But apparently, Lynn herself is an extra at the funeral scene.
Correct.
So Lawler obviously plays himself.
And Lance Russell is in the movie as well.
Lorne Michaels plays himself.
Yeah, Lorne Michaels does play himself.
And that's very... I always wondered, like, how that was for them, reliving all of this.
Oh, yeah.
The priceless thing about the people that play themselves, I'd say, is probably... My favorite thing is probably... when Tony Clifton is wrecking the taxi set, watching Christopher Lloyd's reaction.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and surprisingly, it's not. You'd think it would be distracting, but it's not really that they. They're supposed to be back then in like the early '80s or the late '70s,
yeah.
But they look like themselves now.
Well, it's really funny because you have Jim Ross is doing the commentary. He just retired the other day. He is doing the commentary for the Lawler-Kaufman match in the Mid-South Coliseum, which is funny because Lance Russell, who is the ring announcer for the match, is actually the person who did the original commentary. So they used Jim Ross. And it's funny because if you want to talk about this part, Jerry Lawler had a book that WWE put out a long time ago, and he said that it was a good possibility that if he did not play himself, he was actually going to have someone else play Jerry the King Lawler in the movie. The person that was supposed... And this is in Lawler's book, so there is proof positive of this. I'm not smoking anything. You guys know I'm straight edge. Disco Inferno. Glenn Gilberty was supposed to play Jerry the King Lawler. It is right here.
Wasn't he in trouble for like gambling or something?
Yeah, he did some illegal gambling in Atlanta, I believe, and he got busted for it. So yeah, there it is, right there, for the world to see.
So the supporting characters in Ed Wood are pretty much the bunch. We have Martin Landau, who obviously won an Oscar for Ed Wood, and somewhere Samuel Jackson is twitching when I said that.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's as you said, there is what's his name?
George Animal Steel, yes. Stor Johnson.
There is the two guys. I've forgotten their names now. They're the guys that played the cops in Plan 9.
Marco and Brooks?
Yeah, they were also part of the thing.
Max Casella and Brent Hinckley.
Then there was people in Ed Wood just kind of come and go. They're the ones that kind of stick around. There's Vampira, who basically that's another one. where she's on the phone with him, and he's like, "It's Ed Wood here," and she's like, "Hey, aren't you a fag?" And he's like, "Nope, just transvestite." He's so happy about it. He's just happy all the time.
That's awesome.
That's how his movies got made, was he was just so fucking happy all the time about whatever he was doing. And of course, the uncanny casting of Vincent D'Onofrio as Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Who was, obviously he doesn't have Orson Welles' voice, so he was dubbed over by the guy that does Brain on Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah, Maurice LaMarche.
And after having watched Ed Wood, I never thought about how much Brain sounds like Orson Welles.
It's kind of funny because we talk about here on Pop. Obviously, we talk a lot about that guy with the glasses, in a lot of ways. When Doug did his Nostalgia Critic spiel with the Animaniacs, he talked about the fact that yes, that was Orson Welles was the character of Brain. Like, that's who he was patterned after. That voice was exactly the same, and that was completely outed. So, I mean, it's the truth right there.
So they came together, because if you watch, particularly The Third Man, like, that really, really famous scene in The Third Man where the light hits Harry Lime for the first time, I was like, holy shit, it's Vincent D'Onofrio.
Nice.
But yeah, they don't really get too fleshed out. Like I said, D'Onofrio's only in it for like 30 seconds. Oh, Jeffrey Jones is Criswell.
Yeah, I don't want to forget
And
him.
Bill Murray. Bill Murray, of course. Oh my god. Bill Murray's probably my favorite of the supporting characters.
He's the man that shares my birthday.
He is Bunny Breckenridge, who was the head alien in Plan 9, and he basically was, I don't know what exactly he did. I guess he was just a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always talking about getting a sex change, but he never actually did. But like he has a couple of great lines, or Bill Murray and his magnificent improv. I don't know what was scripted and what wasn't, but like there's one scene where he's talking about I think he's eating a hot dog, ironically, and he's talking about getting his sex change, and they're at the wrestling match where they meet Tor Johnson.
Yeah.
And in this wrestling crowd in front of everybody, he just very loudly goes, "Yep, goodbye, penis." And then there's this scene where they're all in church, because the people funding Plan 9 were a church.
Oh boy.
And they insisted they go to church and get baptized if they were going to finance the movie. So they all go to church, and then right in the middle of the church, while the choir's singing and all that, they're sitting there and they're talking about how they've gotten Ned Bellamy, I think, plays the chiropractor.
Yep.
Plays Kathy's chiropractor, and he's the horrible replacement for Bela Lugosi for Plan 9. And he's showing them by doing this. And they're like, man, the looks are uncanny. It's just a matter of, do you sound like him? And Bill Murray chimes in and says, I know how you figure out how you sound like him. Call Boris Karloff a cocksucker. And you see the church people like giving him a dirty look.
That's great.
But the thing is we don't really go into the supporting characters of Ed Wood, really. They're just kind of there to be a support system and to make the movie.
Okay.
We don't really learn much about them. Whereas with Man on the Moon, we get not only a few of them get a backstory with like George and Bob and I guess Lynn's counts as a supporting character as well.
Yeah.
But that on top of the fact of all these people that came back to play themselves out of like devotion to tell the story is really impressive.
Exactly.
So at this point, we'd have to go to Man on the Moon.
Okay.
Since I'm trying to go a little faster now, we have 2 categories left. This one was kind of difficult. You suggested doing which one's funnier.
Mm-hmm.
Because they both are comedies, despite being biopics about, you know...
Actual people.
Yeah. They both... Because Ed Wood specialized in unintentional comedy, whereas Andy Kaufman specialized in comedy. It was pretty... These movies were bound to be comedies.
Yeah.
Of course they were. With Ed Wood, I talked about the Bill Murray stuff, and he's just, like, Dev's performance is just... That's the thing, is, all his movies were known for being unintentionally hilarious.
Yeah.
So, the way Depp plays him, his character is just like his movies. He's also unintentionally hilarious. Just because of his personality and the way he is.
Nice.
I said, Ed Wood, the person, never thought he was being funny by saying, nope, I'm just a transvestite. So, just his performance in general was hilarious, and there's little things like, like, after the fight with Tor Johnson, he's backstage getting a massage, and Ed's trying to convince him to do the movie. And generally, you know, you'd be eating or something. Maybe not necessarily while getting a massage, but you would be eating after a fight or something. He's laying on the massage table, and he picks up an entire fried chicken and just eats it like an apple.
Nice.
And of course, you know, Landau has most of the serious movies, but he's also got some funny stuff, like all his jabs at Boris Karloff, and everybody loves the line, "Let's shoot this fucker." So, but I would say Man on the Moon's probably funnier, because regardless whether you knew what the fuck he was doing or not, Andy Kaufman was hilarious.
Yes.
And that's pretty much throughout the movie. Like, even when, I'm trying to think of when it was. There's even a moment in the movie after he's, like, really into his cancer that's really funny. There's the moment where they're playing Carnegie Hall, and they're talking about, about Santa coming down.
Yeah.
And Bob says, "I got it." And you say, "Hey Santa, what am I getting for Christmas?" And Andy says, "He says cancer."
Yeah.
No, we shouldn't do that. That's a bummer.
He's so energetic about saying that, though.
Yeah, the fact that Man on the Moon can still be really funny, even after the main character has been diagnosed with cancer and he's, like, practically dying before our eyes. The way he can still be funny. So, that point would go to Man on the Moon. Lastly, we have which one acts as a better biography. Well, like I said, they're both very, they're both generally well written as far as biographies are concerned.
Okay.
Of course. And yeah, there's, one does get credit for being, one does give us more of an understanding of the main character than another one.
Mm.
But at the same time, we kind of, I'm getting thrown off. What was I doing?
I don't know, I need a glass of water right now sitting on the table next to the DVD cases so we could reenact the Jurassic Park scene.
We'll talk about the stuff they reenacted.
We'll go with that.
Obviously you have to watch the Andy Kaufman stuff on YouTube, but like they reenacted the Friday's fight with Michael Richards,
yes.
And the Letterman problem, and I think the wrestling match you can find on YouTube too.
Yeah. One thing, basically, it's completely like glossed over in the entire situation, is Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart actually acted as Andy's manager for all of these matches in Memphis. And he is completely not mentioned in this movie. He would have been at ringside for this match with Lawler. As a matter of fact, they ended up doing like tag matches with Lawler against them, and then Hart would turn against them, and then Hart would have a guy come out and they'd face off against Lawler and Kaufman. And that's how that storyline ended up going.
It was weird to me that this movie does not in any way talk about Andy Kaufman's daughter.
Maybe it was something in the clause in the contract they weren't allowed to mention it, maybe?
Or unless it had happened...
Lynn was on the screen. She was on set.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Or unless it happened before this movie. Like, it happened before... Like, when we see Andy in that club, like, apparently his daughter was born when he was, like, 20.
Yeah.
So that... And he put her up for adoption. So that may have already happened by the time we cut to him as an adult. And obviously, she never... It wasn't until after he was dead, I think, that she traced herself back to him. Mm-hmm. So it really wouldn't have been in the time frame of the movie anyway.
Not really.
I mean, you think it would have been mentioned once? I don't know.
Maybe.
Then there was also... I was going to say something else and I lost it now. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention that George Shapiro's in the movie too. He's the guy that fires him at the beginning. And Bob plays the Friday director.
I mentioned that actually.
Why did you?
Yeah, I actually did mention that.
I didn't hear you.
He's the one that stops the fight between Michael Richards and Andy.
Yeah.
Or Norm Macdonald and Andy in this case.
So... But I mean, like I said, I suppose you could throw it in a good way with this. I know I just shunned Man on the Moon for this, but giving us the whole idea of Andy by not fully understanding him after having seen the movie. So your opinion on this matter can go back and forth throughout the movie, so it's hard to really keep a hold of.
I've always loved the ending. It's always amazing. I love the way the ending plays out. You have Tony Clifton on stage. Then you've got Bob Zmuda in the back, just standing there smiling. And this actually happened at the Comedy Store. Like, this happened in, 1985, actually. It happened, this exact same thing happened at the Comedy Store.
Yeah, because it was a year after his death.
Yep.
Anybody want to see Andy tonight? Anybody got a flashlight and a couple of shots?
Yeah, I remember that.
Also, there was an opportunity for another cameo, but apparently it was just written out, I guess. There could have been a big cameo at the Carnegie Hall scene, but they didn't involve that. Were you aware of this?
No.
This Andy's grandma bit.
Oh, yeah.
That they did at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, I remember that.
Andy's grandma came out, and they did this whole bit, and then Andy's grandma took off her makeup, and it was Robin Williams.
Yeah.
That was not featured in this. I guess they were cutting things around.
Pressed for time, because the Carnegie Hall bit, it's kind of like in like clips. I mean, obviously you don't have enough time to do the whole thing, or even like get an idea of the thing. You just kind of have to do like the main stuff, and the Robin Williams stuff probably should have been left in, but maybe it was kind of like, well...
Or they thought they would have been too heavy on the cameos.
Yes, because this whole cast is not... Bud Friedman, the guy that runs the Improv, he's in the movie, so... It's heavy on cameos.
Ed Wood works well as well. This pretty much rides on which one wins this, so I gotta really think about it. Well, the thing is Man on the Moon really gives us we see Andy from the get-go.
Yeah.
Ed Wood starts with,
Is he already established?
Well, he made that play, and he works on, like, the back lot. And we see him, he's made friends with, like, the stock footage guy.
Yeah.
And he's going through all the stock footage, and he thinks about making an entire movie out of just stock footage. And most of the stock footage actually ended up in, like, Bride of the Monster and Plan 9 and stuff like that. But yeah, it covers a lot. The main focus of the movie is his relationship with Bela Lugosi, which apparently supposedly mirrors a bit, supposedly the relationship Burton and Vincent Price had after they made Edward Scissorhands. So, I don't think Vincent Price was a drug addict or anything. I don't know. He seemed too distinguished to be. Oh God. Basically, this last category is saying which one do I prefer. I love Ed Wood, and I think it's really brilliantly done. Like, if direction was its own category, like Burton, it also won art direction.
Yeah. Look at it.
It's just the way the movie is made, like... If ever there was... I mean, Tim Burton is known for these magnificent movies prior to now.
Yeah.
Like, Sweeney Todd and back, at least. And, of course, Edward Scissorhands, is one of the greatest movies ever made. But honestly, if ever there was a time where Tim Burton was going to actually get an Oscar nomination for Best Director, it would have been for this movie. There's so many visual things going on, and you just have to see it to even... I can't even describe it, really. But, as far as which movie I prefer... I would say Man on the Moon. Mainly because I think Man on the Moon is more rewatchable. Ed Wood is great by all means. Trust me, it is. But Man on the Moon is more rewatchable, and it has these... Ed Wood doesn't really have emotional peaks. I mean,
really?
Maybe a scene here and there, like, you know, a couple, like, there's this magnificent scene with Landau. It's Landau's last scene, actually, before his, obviously, the next scene's his funeral. But he's talking about his lines and, what was it? It's his final speech in Bride of the Monster. And he gives this really big, magnificent speech, and people have actually we always see is him, and he's just giving this magnificent speech. It's anything. That's another great thing. I'll get to that in a second. Don't let me forget. And after he's delivered this speech, people have actually gathered around him on the sidewalk, and they start begging him for an autograph. He
Nice.
washed up. The great thing that Ed Wood does is I've actually seen the Ed Wood movies. I saw Plan 9 and Bride of the Monster and Night of the Ghouls and Glenda. And I hated them. Like, I don't even find them fun. I just don't like them. But watching them being made in Ed Wood would be enough to convince you that they're great. Like, it makes you want to look at them in a different way.
True.
Like, watching Ed Wood might convince you those are actually great. They were as great as he thought they were. But, just... I don't know, just Man on the Moon really takes you to an emotional place that Ed Wood doesn't.
I think the ending of it always gets me when Man on the Moon kicks up at the end. And
the combination of scenes, one right after the other, the funeral followed by the Comedy Store scene.
Yeah.
That's just one big emotional peak. And, yeah, the Carnegie Hall scene's another one of my favorite scenes, too.
Absolutely.
So, looks like Man on the Moon wins by 1 point. This one was really, really hard, because both of these movies are just out of this world great. So, that went much better than I thought it would, not being... I had no idea what the fuck I was going to say when you turned the camera on. I just figured I'd seen both movies enough to where I could just go with it without planning anything, so...
Well, without mentioning what they are, obviously, are you confident about your knowledge of the next two verses we have for the next 2 weeks?
A couple of them. Like, a couple of the movies involved, not necessarily all of them together. I might need to do some rewatching, but... One particular movie taking part in verses in the next couple of weeks is a movie I know front to back, so that won't be hard. But the other three, I'm pretty familiar with, but I might need a re-jogging before I do that.
I'm just going to throw it out right now. Cryptic comments for the next two verses, which will be from, I can say this, live to tape. They'll be taping, actually, they would have taped yesterday, since today is officially Sunday. They would have taped, Sunday. I don't know what day it is anymore. They'll be on the same day. Anyway, cryptic comments are actually childhood and adrenaline. So those are the two that you have to look forward to. I will be at Disney enjoying myself, having a blasty blast, and you guys will still get AJ's movie reviews and verses while I'm gone. And we'll come back with a lot, and I do mean a lot of movie reviews. It's going to be catch-up time.
It's going to be Oscar time, too.
We're in the trenches of Oscar season. Of course, we have our second of our prediction videos, which is going to be coming up as soon as I get back. So that weekend will also be, the weekend of Gravity will be the next prediction video. So that's coming up too. So, AJ, any parting words?
Nope.
Thank you very much.